Remember that when you're creating an orthographic drawing, there's a specific orientation to everything. So if I were to, let's click here, zoom out. If I were to complete my orthographic drawing, I would have top view at the top. So let's move that up here. Directly under it, I would have front view, and over here I would have right view. I'm going to let you design these two views on your own, but what I do want to do is demonstrate how to convert this into 3D. So let's select this and go over to copy. There we go. And we click this and we bring it over here. Okay. So if we go into Southeast isometric mode, this will become our 3D version. So let's switch over to here. And if you recall, what we did in the previous videos is that we connected lines that might not be connected. So let's click on here. That looks good. But if I were to click on this, as you can see, it does not connect to the other ones. So what we want to do is select everything and then type join. And now we're ready to turn it into an extrusion. So in my version of AutoCAD, you click on modeling on the side here. For yours, you would select the correct banner along the top, the correct option along the top. So on a Mac, it's extrude right here. Hit enter. And I want to set as 10 because these little wood pieces you will find out are perfectly square. They're 10 by 10. So the width and the height are identical at 10 millimeters. And if I turn this to shades of gray, you'll see it's solid in the center, which is not correct. This is actually hollow. So type in subtract or find the icon in your panel. Remember, you select the part you want to keep first, hit enter, and then select the part you want to remove and hit enter. Okay, so now we have the basic frame, and we will move forward with creating the eyelets for the axles. We're going to use a command called tor to create the eyelets. So type in TOR, and you can just click off to the side. When you pull it, it looks like a circle, but what you want to do is create something in the shape of like a miniature donut. So 4 millimeters by 1 millimeter gives you a nice little donut type shape. And we're going to use that as our eyelet, but we now have to rotate it. It's not in the correct orientation. So if you were to look at, not sure how visible it is, he's got the little eyelets here. They have to go on the end of the axles, okay? So let's go back to here. And I'm going to select this and rotate it. So this will be a 2-part rotation. I think we're going to first click on the green loop and type in 90. And now we have to click on the blue loop to move it around. So click at 90 again. And now it's in the correct orientation. Now this would have been easier if I'd left it as a single line. I might have to put in a single line here because it actually, when you copy it, it centers itself on the line. It doesn't know how to center itself when you have 2 here. Offset, and this is 5, so just offset it by 2.5. I'm going to put this back into 2D wireframe and then select this, copy it, and snap it to that middle one. Let's zoom in here. Okay, I'm just going to do the other side now. Okay, that one looks good. That looks good. Make sure you line it up with the center line. There we go. Is that the right spot? Okay, I think we're good. Now we have to raise the frame of the car as well as the eyelets. As you can see, there's really no room for the tires to go, so that's not going to work. So we have to raise it up. So I'm going to select this, click on the arrow in the center, raise it about 20 millimeters. But I also have to raise the eyelets, so I'm going to select them. And they should reside slightly below the frame. You don't want them in the frame too snug because the axles have to go through them. So let's say we'll raise them up to 17 millimeters. See how that looks. Okay, type in 17. And let's see if I were to rotate this. Yeah, that should work. Good. Okay, now we have to build the axles that run through those eyelets. The easiest method is actually just to create a circle here and extrude it. So if I were to create one that has a 2 millimeter radius, I think that's the width of the axles that are provided to you. And then I extrude it. And he has 180 as his width. So we put 180. And then we want to rotate it in a similar fashion that we rotated. Let's get back to Southeast isometric view to make sure we don't make a mistake. So what we want to do is rotate this in a similar fashion to the eyelets. So if I were to click on this and then select rotate, I'm going to pivot this over by 90. Okay, and now we want the copy command. You can always type it if you can't find the icon. Select the object. And it's supposed to snap in. If we've done this correctly, it'll snap in. If I zoom in, I believe that worked. I'll try this again. Okay. Now if I were to rotate this, how does it look? It looks good. So now what we have to do is just shift it over. So I'm going to go back into Southeast isometric mode and zoom in, select my axles, and I'll pull it forward by 20. Escape, and if we rotate, that looks pretty good. Okay, now it's time to create a wheel. Before I dive into explaining how to make the wheels, I should bring attention to the fact that I have not been working with layers. My expectation is that you automatically are doing that to help organize how your drawing is constructed. So for instance, I could have wheels on a layer, I could have axles on another layer, I could have the frame on a third layer, and so forth. So I guess to go along with what I'm saying, I'll create one called wheels just to demonstrate how this might look. Change that to magenta, and then make sure I'm on that layer as I construct this. Okay, so what we want to do is grab the circle tool and click here and make the first one 2 millimeters. And then hit spacebar to reselect that tool. Click in the center, make this 4 millimeters, and you might want to zoom in. Hit spacebar, click in the center. This one is 13 millimeters. Spacebar, center. This one is 14 millimeters. Spacebar, center. This one is 19 millimeters. Spacebar, center. And this one is 20 millimeters. Okay, so this is the flat side of the tire before it's been extruded. So what we want to do is lift the interior circle here by 1 millimeter. So I'm going to click on this and click on here and lift that by 1 millimeter. Okay. Now what I want to do is make sure I select both this one and this one. Oops. And I'm going to extrude this by 16 millimeters. So we're going to go to extrude here and type in 16. Okay, so I don't want the middle as a solid. I want it hollow. So now we have to go to subtract. And just for speed, I'm going to type it in. I want to keep the outside and remove the inside. Okay, so now that's hollow. It's probably best at this point just to switch over to wireframe mode, because now we can see the interior pieces as well. Okay, so now we want to raise these ones by 13 millimeters. So click here, put in 13. And let's view it in gray. So now you can see where it's starting to form the shape. Once again, we want to subtract the center. So we will go to subtract. Select this one, don't hit enter. Select this one, don't hit, now you can hit enter. And then select the interior one and hit enter to subtract that. And now you can see the remaining circles on the inside. And now we want to do some work on those little ones we see here. So this center one here, we want to raise that by 1 millimeter. And then we want to select both of them and raise them both up together for 2 millimeters. Now this is a little tricky. For some reason on my computer, it doesn't always grab and raise them both at the same time. I might have to do them separately. Yeah, it's not really cooperating. So I'll raise this one up 2, and then I'll raise this one up 2. It's just a 2-step process, but that's okay. And now we want to raise this. So we'll select these. And sorry, extrude, I should say. So we will extrude this 18. So once again, we'll bring up subtract. We'll select the outside. We want to keep that. Hit return or enter. And the interior we want to remove. Hit enter. So now it's starting to look more and more like a wheel, but we need spokes. So what we're going to do, move to the side here, grab the line tool, polyline tool, it doesn't matter. And we'll make a line that's, actually I'm gonna put ortho mode on just to make sure I'm nice and straight. I don't want any jagged lines. And 3 millimeters. And then we're going to grab the circle tool, find the center point, bring it out 1.5, which is half of 3, so the radius. And now it has a diameter of 3. And then we want to go over to our drafting area and select trim, and of course it's different on a PC. Trim that off, okay? And then we want to grab everything and type join. Remember that we have to do that whenever we have lines that are sort of separate. That's how we can do an extrusion. And now we want to select it again, go back to the modeling panel and select extrude. And this time we are going to raise this up by 13 millimeters. And now we have to rotate it. Because it's a spoke, it has to be on the same visual plane as the wheel. So Let's select this, rotate gizmo. $90. Okay, good. And now we have to move it. I should mention before we move this that it's a bit tricky to align it correctly. And I think it depends heavily on what point you select from to move. So if I were to select all of this and I get the move tool, if I grab the midpoint, which you would think realistically would be the best one, it doesn't seem to work correctly. So you probably want to grab the corner ones. For the sake of speed, I've actually set this up already, just so that I can move it into position, as I don't want to take up your time with this video. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's positioned correctly. So if I were to rotate this, let's get out of that view. Come down here. It should be centered in the circle, and the very top of it should be aligned with that interior circle. It's a bit tricky to get it to this point, but if you select that corner node, it should go into position a lot easier. And then what you have to do, it's never on the correct level, is you select it and you adjust your level here. Go up, down, or maybe you have to slightly move it left and right and so forth. Okay, so now that we have this in position, let's rotate this around so you can see what I'm about to do here. We're going to type a new command that you have not used. Now, on PC, I believe it's just array. And then, of course, on a Mac, everything has to be different. So it's array polar. So it's either polar array or it's just array on a PC. And then you select the object, hit enter. And we want it to go around the circle. So we're clicking on here, and you can see it automatically adds all the spokes. If you look at the wheel that we have in the class, it does not have 6, it has 5, so you just reduce it down to 5 here. Okay, so now we have our wheel, and we can move it into position. Okay, now we need to rotate the wheel so it's in the correct visual, so it's vertical, not horizontal. I'm going to rotate this. Okay, there we go. So it was a 90-degree rotation to flip it up and then 180-degree spin. Okay, so now we have to move it into position. It's going to be tricky to do this unless we orient it so that we can see this and the back of this. So we want the back of our wheel visible, as you see how that protrudes, and we have to hook it onto our axle. So perhaps I should move this first so it's not in front of the frame. Let's pull this over here. So now when I rotate, I have a better view of the back end of it. And I'm going to select this, grab my move tool, I want the very edge of this. I might need to rotate a little bit more. There we go. And click. Okay, so that works, and now we just copy it and move it into position on the other side. So this time, we'll make a copy of it. And you might want to copy it before you move it here because there's a risk of grabbing the axle, of course. In order to get the wheels on the other side of the axles, we need to flip it. To speed this video up a little bit, I just copied one of the wheels, brought it over here, and I'm going to turn it around. So I'll select all of this, rotate 180. And this time I'm going to make a copy of it just to speed things up a little bit. Okay. Now, if we view this in top view, we'll have a better idea of how it looks. As you can see, the wheels are sticking out a little too far, so we want to move them in about 20 millimeters on each side. So let me zoom in here. So I'm going to grab these and move this 20. And then I'll grab these and move them in 20. All right, so that looks a lot better. And if I were to orient this into southeast isometric mode, should look pretty good. Let's just do rotation here. So we have the basic frame built. In the next tutorial video, I'll show you how to create wheel covers so that you can construct a car that covers this entire region. You don't have to have it tucked in on the wood pieces, the wood frame. It can come up and over top of the wheels. So I'll demonstrate how that can be built in the next video.